Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Write or Die Show. I am your host, Randi-lee. On the show, we interview other writers and we talk about mental health from their personal journeys. If you have not already hit that like and subscribe button, go ahead, do that now so that you never miss an episode. Hello. So today with us, we have Tim Eggebraaten. Hello.
Woo! Good morning.
I love the energy this early in the morning. It's fantastic.
And that's what the coffee's for.
See, I'm not a coffee drinker, so.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, my kid offered it to me this morning because I slept in a little bit. But yeah, so whatever. So Tim, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, outstanding. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. I'm excited. I am from Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. So it's your neighbors to the south there and from Canada. And been here for 32 years already. And I was a police officer in Detroit Lakes for about 25 years and a correctional officer for 3 years before that. So I retired about 7 years ago from law enforcement. And my last 5.5 years of my career, I was the chief of police in Detroit Lakes here. And in retirement, I now travel around the country sharing a motivational, inspirational message about how do we navigate the challenging parts of life while still looking for the beauty that's out there and the good.
Very nice. So, I mean, that's a little bit about who you are, but that's more about what you've done.
Oh,
I told you it was the hardest one. I told you.
This is not your first rodeo. I love it. So I am married to my wife of 35 years, and we have 3 sons. And all 3 of them are in different. 2 of them are in Arizona. One's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the oldest son made me a grandpa twice over, so that's exciting.
Isn't being a grandparent the best?
The best, yeah, hands down.
I have one grandbaby, and it is the best. I tell people just skip being a parent and go straight to being a grandparent. They're like, "How do you do that?" I go, "Well, you just adopt an adult." And then they have a baby for you.
That's a great idea. Yeah,
right?
No, it's we did the traditional route of having the kids and then waiting for them to grow up and get married and start cranking out kids themselves. But love the grandkids, and my wife and I love to travel, and but we're empty nesters, and so we get to travel a little bit more. And
nice.
Yeah, so that's me.
I love that. See, that's much more you than,
Good call.
Right? I know people always try to get out of that question and they tell me about what they've done, and I'm like, yeah, but like, who are you on the inside?
Yeah, you don't need a resume. Yeah, that's for sure.
Right? Exactly. That's just boring stuff. So I guess we'll move on to the other stuff, the hard stuff.
All right, bring it on.
So I know when you filled out your little questionnaire thing, you mentioned, well, I mean, you did mention it here too, about being a police officer and all that. So I've had 2 other retired police officers. I want to say 2 other ones on here. Maybe 3. That's how many episodes we've had. We've had so many. So tell me, like, the consistent theme is that you guys deal with a lot.
Right.
And then it's not always dealt with emotionally on the other side once the incident is over. So tell me about, some of that stuff. How did you manage? How did you deal?
Yeah, that's excellent. And that's deal is the operative word there, isn't it? So we experience a lot of things, like all of us, we're experiencing, each and every one of us experiences something. And in law enforcement, nobody calls 911 to report that their child just got an A on their report card. And so we're always dealing with people in crisis. And that can start to wear on you. And then the accidents and the child abuse and the elder abuse and the self abuse, and so all of these things that we're dealing with are challenging. And so you go there and you take care of the call, and you're expected to just move on to the next call, and that's where the challenge is. So when I started my career in 1989, and in 1989 it was the mantra was "Suck it up, Buttercup." Like, what did you expect?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you signed up for this, and so we would handle these calls and emotional, and then you just expect to saddle up again and go back to work. And I remember I had an infant that had died, and I got to the house, and the mom had given me the infant, and I remember doing CPR on this little guy, and it just rocked me, and
Yeah.
it stuck with me for months afterwards. And I went to work the next night, and one of my partners, one of my best friends, said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing?" And he goes, "How are you here right now?" And that was like the first time somebody had asked me or suggested that, yeah, maybe that was tough. But I mean, otherwise it was just like shove it in somewhere. You have to package it up somewhere so you can move on to the next call.
Mhm.
Um, and ironically, that friend and that partner of mine who had, wisely suggested that, hey, maybe that was messed up. And he died by suicide about 10 months after I began my career as chief of police. And so that rocked my world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of ironic that he is the one to say to you that, "What are you doing?" Because
Right.
that's a difficult situation, and then
Right.
obviously something was not being dealt with for him, which
Right.
is a horrible. Um, how'd you deal with his death?
I didn't. I mean, that was another thing that was shoved down inside. And so when he died, I think I'd been in law enforcement for over 20 years at that point, or around 20 years. And that summer, he died on Mother's Day in 2012. And when he died, and so that summer was just kind of a blur for me. I was a brand
Yeah.
new chief of police, and just kind of in chief of police mode, and I was taking care of my team, or trying to take care of my team, my family, his family, and like stay involved in all these things. And I was entertaining as a one-man band. I was doing a lot of shows, and it started to boil over, and where I thought, am I going crazy here? Because I was having nightmares, I was having daymares, where I would replay videos of 20 plus years of stuff that I just stuffed down. I was replaying the videos in my head in color and sound and everything, and the smells. And I thought, oh, I am losing it here. And several months into that summer, then a friend of mine pulled me aside, and he was a chaplain for our Chiefs of Police Association. He said, "How you doing, Tim?" Of course, I was like every other cop, "I'm great. How are you?"
Right? That's the go-to answer, not just for cops, I think for
Oh,
everybody. "Oh, we're
yeah.
great, we're fine." Actually, one
Oh,
of my very first episodes on the show, we're going back, what, 3 years now, and it was a challenge to everybody, so let's reissue this challenge. Do not ask somebody how you're doing unless A, you want to know, and on the flip side of that, if somebody says, "How you doing?" give them the actual answer.
yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's not. And he kept on, and he was persistent. He said, "How you doing, Tim?" I said, "I'm great, Dan. How are you?" "How you doing, Tim?" I'm like, "Where are we going with this?" And he had pulled me aside. He did it perfectly.
He
And
knew.
he just suggested that, man, you've been hit by a couple of trucks in your first year as chief of police, and right now you're talking to other chiefs, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But have you thought about getting your head checked, going to see a professional? And I thought, man, who the heck are you to suggest, and I thought maybe he had seen what was going on in my head, somehow miraculously, and he didn't. Somebody had suggested to him, hey, maybe go talk to Tim, because he's had a rough go of it this year. And but it's and so I went and sought help, and that was a big thing. You know, we talk a lot about stigmas, and the stigma, it seemed like, was massive, you know, but the reality, I thought I'm walking into this clinic, I thought everybody's going to know that I think I'm going crazy, you know, and it's like, and I was always assuming the worst, that, oh my gosh, how am I going to, what's the community going to say? The community is going to look at me,
Right.
you know, but it was a farce. I mean, nobody even knew, first of all. And if they did know that I was experiencing some issues, they were super supportive.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point about the stigma is so many of us think that, oh, people know and they're judging, when in reality, they probably don't know. If they do know, they're probably not judging. Even if
Right.
they are, does it really have any bearing on our life? Probably
No.
not. But I think in your position, because you were in a position of power, a position of community, um, like trying to think, like a leadership community position, being chief of police, I
Mhm.
think that comes with a lot more worry about what others are thinking, because if our chief of police can't take care of his own self, then how is he supposed to take care of us?
Right.
Whereas the reality of the situation is, by reaching out for help and working on yourself, you're actually better able to then help everyone else.
Right.
But the
Yeah.
stigma of that is so, yeah, that's, you put that so perfectly.
Yeah. And the psychologist that I met with, you know, I asked him about PTSD. I'd heard the phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd asked him about it. I said, "Do I have PTSD?" And he's like, "I don't think so, you know, but if you, you know, continue playing these videos in your head like 6 months from now or whatever," he said, and he suggested maybe start talking about it to other people. And so I did, and that was like a big step. And then so the first
Mhm.
couple of times that I started talking about Chad's death and about like incidents that we would be dealing with. Um, it was tough at first, but then as you know, I gained experience, and we kind of gained momentum talking about that. And then when I retired from law enforcement in 2016, I made it into a career, you know, talking to people about uh, about that. And I throw in music, you know, because music seems to bind us all together, and
Yes.
something about our rhythm of life. And um, yeah, it's the more we do that, you know, at first it seems daunting. Like, well, first of all, who am I? You know, I'm no expert on anything with relating to mental health. So I was very hesitant at first, but then after Chad's death, I mean, I was on the couch at home, curled up in the fetal position, and I remember a friend of mine sent me a song that his brother had written, but he took a Bob Dylan tune and made his own words, and that song hit me between the headlights, and it was enough to like shake me out of that funk that I was in. And I've never been diagnosed like with anything official. Like I've never went
Mhm.
in for like, do I have depression or whatever level, you know?
Yeah.
But I just know that at that point, everything was dark, and it was like I was tired, lethargic, and that song just like rocked me, and it was a great reminder. And so it pulled me out of that funk. And then,
Mhm.
so now when I'm talking with organizations and people, and I use music, and because everybody's dealing with something,
Oh,
maybe they're,
yeah.
you know, 100% of us. And so if I can share my experiences, well, and if that helps somebody, if they say, well, yeah, this guy was the chief of police and he went in for help, you know, then my mission is accomplished. I mean, if I can do that, and if that helps
Right?
somebody, make it a little easier for them to go ask somebody for some help, that then I'm done. So
Right? Exactly. Well, that's kinda how the show got started. I'm like, "Well, if I can help even one person with what I've been through, then
mhm,
cool." Right? So I love, there was a couple key points that I'm gonna reiterate for what you just said. The first one there is, you hadn't been officially diagnosed with something.
right,
And I think for some people, that I've spoken to over the years, they think, "Okay, well, if I don't have an actual diagnosis, then nothing is wrong with me."
right,
But you said it, we all go through dark times.
Right.
So just because you don't have depression or bipolar or PTSD, like just because you don't have a word associated to what is happening in your life in that moment doesn't mean that you can't reach out for help.
Right.
Sometimes we just need help with a specific situation, especially dealing with death. I mean, that's why there's usually there's a lot of different grief support groups out there,
Hmm.
because it's just a, I don't want to say a blip in your life because it's awful. I've experienced grief myself, but it really is kind of just a small part of your life
Right.
where you've lost somebody. Now, that loss stays with you. Don't get me wrong here, guys. I'm not saying that you forget about them, but it gets easier to live with.
Right.
I don't like saying you get over it, because that's not what it is. You're not getting over
Right.
somebody's death, but you're learning to live with that. Um, so when you're saying, I just needed help in that moment, people need help in a moment. And so
Right.
it's totally okay to go out and ask for help for that moment. I remember my aunt told me that when my grandma had died, she went to a grief support group, and she said it helped a lot. So again, it wasn't that she was going to a psychologist, but there's different types of support out there, which is so
Right.
important.
Right.
And then there was something else you said, but I really got stuck on that one because I really loved it. And now the other one has fled my head, but maybe it'll come back to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Um, but I definitely think that what you're doing is for sure helping, because
Mhm.
again, if you can share your experience,
Right.
then others don't feel alone, because I think that's a big part. I think this is where it's come back in my head. It's such a big part, is when you feel that you are the only one experiencing it, or that you're going to be
Mhm.
judged when you walk into this building, that feeling often keeps us from seeking that help. So when you
Right.
are sharing your story, you are 100% achieving that goal of helping even at least one person. I always love to say if you can help at least one person, but I think you probably helped hundreds, um, thousands, maybe even.
That's the
And
goal.
right, I love it. I'm with you on that one. So I think that you're definitely hitting that, and keep doing it, keep talking, because
Yeah.
again, so many people don't realize that we all struggle at some point, and that help comes in different forms.
Right. And it can be the
So
same
what
message that maybe you heard. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
It can be the same message that maybe you've heard over and over and over again, but then like I always consider like a puzzle. And then when you hear a message or when something happens, it's like a piece of the puzzle gets put into your life. And that picture might not be very clear at that point or at any stage of your life. But at some point, if you hear the same message again, put in maybe a little different twist, and maybe it's a podcast like this, or maybe it's a book that you're reading or something somebody says or whatever. And then it's like, because you're in that situation at that moment, all of a sudden the picture looks a little more clear because that's one more puzzle piece. And so that's all I'm doing. That's all you do, is we just put these puzzle pieces out there, and hopefully somebody at some point. The beauty of this medium of social media like this and podcast is that this will last for a long time. And maybe somebody's
Yeah.
just scrolling and they'll see, well, what's this now? And they'll click on it. Maybe they need to hear whatever it is you are talking about with your guests, or maybe something I'm saying, and that's when they needed to hear at that point. And so that's all we can do, is just keep trying. So
Right. Well, and that's just it. Sometimes you hear the message and you don't need the message in that moment. But
right,
then, 6 months later, you hear the same message. Could be the exact same clip, even that you're watching. It just popped
right,
back up on your feed, right?
yeah,
And then it hits you because in that moment, you needed that information.
yeah,
So it's definitely a puzzle piece, and it's a ever changing.
oh
Puzzle piece. It's like the labyrinth. It's always changing.
yeah,
That's my favorite movie.
yeah.
So what has been excuse me. What has been a favorite coping strategy that you found to help?
Music has been huge. So I play guitar and I sing and I listen to music, and so that's been a big piece of my life forever. I was whistling before I could speak, so I mean, I just think we're all hardwired that way. Another puzzle piece that I was 48 years old and I was at a chiefs of police conference that we had hosted in Detroit Lakes here, and I brought in a sergeant from the Minneapolis Police Department, and he came in and he told these all of us chiefs of police. He said, "If you feel comfortable, close your eyes." And we all looked at each other like, "Are you crazy?" You know, we're all pretty conservative. And then he took us through a mindfulness exercise. And I'm sure I'd heard of mindfulness and meditation before that. I probably did, but like we had just talked about, I wasn't ready for it. And when I heard that, he just took us through a simple, I think he called it leaf on a stream exercise, where we just closed our eyes, visualize a stream, and we see this leaf going by, and we focus on it, and we put things on that leaf, whatever pops into our head, whatever we're thinking about. And it was simple, but I actually called him like months afterwards, and I said, "What the heck was that?" Because it was profound. I mean, it was, I would say, life-changing. And so I meditate, and I meditate almost every day, and I'm practice mindfulness every day. And it's been if I had known that, like when I was 25 and a brand new cop, maybe that would have changed some of my flows that I went through. I don't know, but
Right.
it was huge. So I do that, and I part of meditation for me is prayer, and then also finding community, people that are supportive, and then but will still hold you to the fire, if hold your feet to the fire, like, hey, you're accountable for what you're doing and what you're saying. And so those are the main things, I guess, that try to take care of myself, physically and mentally and spiritually too.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And I like how you brought what we talked about kind of forward, where you're saying, I heard of meditation, mindfulness. What's I, you hear it, whatever. But when
Yeah.
you experienced it in that moment of your
Right.
life, that's when it stuck with you, because that's exactly what it is. That's why repetition is so important. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember exactly what we were working on, but I remember this fairly vividly. Grade 8. So I'm going back a long time. So grade 8, my teacher was giving us a talk on how people have to hear things. I want to say it was like 7 times before it sticks. And I can't remember what he was saying. He was doing like this activity where he would throw in just like a random piece of information, but he did it 7 times throughout the day. And so by the end of the day, we all remembered what it was. I mean, 25 years ago, I don't remember now, but but we all remembered by the end of the day. But when he asked us at lunchtime, we're like, what are you talking about? Because it hadn't been 7 times yet. So it really is important to keep telling people your story, or to keep telling people these different coping strategies, because it takes a long time before something sticks into our
Mhm.
brains. We like to just let things go.
Mhm.
Um, and the other thing, um, see, I keep losing my train of thought today. It's because I woke up late, my alarm didn't go off. It was this whole thing. Um, but when we keep, oh, it was how the chaplain was asking you, and then asking you, and then asking you. Not that
Right.
I want, certain people have a better relationship with asking the same question over and over. Sometimes it can just be annoying, but that concept of making sure that the person, if you think something's going on with them, like clearly he thought something was going on with you,
Right.
um, don't let them walk away, right? I mean, obviously you can't hog tie him and keep him there, but try your best to be like, yo, like, I'm here for you. You can,
Right.
what's up?
Yeah.
Like, clearly you're not fine. You're saying you're fine. You're saying everything's hunky dory, but it's not. So
Right.
come on, truth time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that part really stuck with me when you said that too. And I keep getting captivated. So for those who are going to be listening to this without the visual, let me say something that is very captivating. So behind Tim, he has a sign on his wall, and I'm so captivated by it. And I think that's why I keep losing my train of thought, because I keep looking at it. It's I am, I can, I will. And I just it's so cute the way it's in, like, the little black circle with the words. I don't know, it's captivating me quite a lot. Yeah, okay, see, it's not as captivating on your cup, I don't know why, but that
Yeah.
the way it's on the wall there,
Yeah.
it's got my attention, and I keep losing my train of thought because I'm
Yeah.
just like, I am, I can, I will.
Right.
So I just wanted to point that out for those who cannot see this, ones that are listening and not watching. This is why it's so important to watch, guys.
Yeah.
So is there any last words on this topic that you wanted to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So the "I am, I can, I will," that was a phrase my mother would repeat to us, over and over and over again and she kinda taught us that's how you take on challenges, and it's not that simple, especially somebody that if they're in a deep, emotional or mental crisis, you can't just say, "Oh, yeah, well, just come on, buddy, I am, I can, I will,"
Mhm.
and so it's not that simple, but in a lot of ways, it is that simple, that just reminding yourself that, "You know what? I've made it to this day right now, and yeah, I've had challenges before, but here I am." And, I'm gonna make it to the next minute. I don't know if tomorrow's gonna happen, or I don't even know whatever, but having that mindset. And so I wrote a song called "I Am, I Can, I Will." It just popped into my head, and I worked
Oh.
with a friend of mine that and we came up with this upbeat tune, "I am, I can, I will." And so that's been a mantra of mine that I wanna leave a legacy or leave my mother's legacy. She died about 7 or 8 years ago, and I wanna keep her legacy going. And so I wrote a book too, and that was another, like, piece that I was very scared because it's very emotional, and it's very personal, and I almost said, "You know what? Just about scrapped the whole idea." But I released it, and I'm having similar feedback, like, "Hey, we needed to hear this, thank you." So it's just like it adds to what we're talking about, that a lot of the times all we can do is all we can do. That just be there, show up, and tell somebody you're going to support. You can't protect somebody from themselves, but we can say, "You know what? I am here for you. I'm going to love you unconditionally, and I will be here for you. Let me know how I can help," and then offer help in some ways. But it's all we can do.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah, exactly. It is all we can do. Aw, I love that it was your mom and that you
Yeah.
made a
Oh, yeah.
song and everything. That's so sweet. It's amazing what our parents can leave with us.
Mhm.
Ideally good things like that, but, they really do play such a big part in our lives. So you mentioned this book that you were gonna scrap. What? But tell us about this book.
Yeah, and it's called "Find Your Beat, Walk in the Rhythm of Life,"
Oh,
and
hold that up again. I like the cover. Let me describe it here. So it is a picture of a singular tree with a silhouette of a guy. He's walking down a dirt path. There's
Mhm.
like this beautiful sun coming out from behind the tree with the nice blue. I actually really love that. I've been obsessed with taking pictures of trees and clouds right now.
Yeah,
So I don't know why. Well, I got this fancy new phone, so it takes really good pictures now, and
yeah.
so I'm obsessed with taking pictures of trees and the moon. I've taken a lot of pictures of the moon now because it actually zooms in enough. You can see the craters
Oh,
and stuff. Yeah.
crazy.
So that picture, I love it because it's what I'm obsessed with right now.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so I started writing it like 7 years ago, right after I retired from law enforcement, and, um, when I started speaking professionally and sharing my message, people would come up after the presentations. They'd want to know more about. I talk about a guy named Norman that really impacted my life at a critical point in my career and my life. I talk about my parents, and I talk. They want to know more, and so I started writing down stories, but 7 years ago, when I look at my writings, then they read like a police report, and that's how
I
I
wonder
wrote.
why.
Right, yeah, and, saw subject, arrested same, and it was
Yeah.
horrible. And then the writing style began to progress and get better, and I was more clear about what I was describing. And then about a year and a half ago, I started working with a writing coach, and we So yeah, I paid the coach and we had everything ready to go. And I got my first 3 chapters back, and I had this overwhelming fear of, this is stupid. Again, who am I? And
Yeah.
that imposter syndrome. And I thought, you know what, dude, I already paid you. Let's just leave it at that. And I was ready to scrap it. And then I started reading it some more, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. And so my wife and I, because my story, she's obviously involved
Oh,
because
of
she lived
course.
with me. And so
Yeah.
when it was ready to send to the publisher, we hit enter together and sent it off. And I was like, okay, now what's going to happen? And um, but again, the results have been, people reading it and letting me know it's a quick read. It's only 132 pages,
Those
and
are
people.
my favorite, to be honest. I love the quick reads. That's how
Yep,
I write too, because
yep,
I don't
me
want
too.
to lose people's interest. I mean, again, when you're writing these kind of books too, the quicker the read, I feel like, yeah, you get your point across. Sometimes, if I'm reading like a fantasy book, I understand why it's a little bit longer, but I still prefer the quicker reads.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
Mhm.
yeah, and then in the fictional, there's character development and all of these.
Right? Yeah, a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, and that's what we were going for, was kind of a quick, impactful, like, hey, this is what the mistakes that I made, and these are the people that influenced me in my life, and hoping that somebody reading it, just like in my keynote presentation, somebody listening to it or reading my book, it'll resonate with them, and they'll say, you know what, I'm not the only one that shoves emotions down and or that
Yeah.
turns to alcohol to or non-healthy ways to handle this by not
Mhm.
handling it. So that's the goal of the book, is to reach people by my own personal experiences, and it's working, and it's like I'm getting messages from people around the world, and it's just like mind blowing, and it's
Isn't that the greatest when people
wild.
from around the world, I love it, like, when I'm telling people who I've had on my show, I'm like, "Somebody from Australia," like, literally the other side of the world.
Good eye, mate.
Yeah, it's so cool, it's such a cool feeling.
Yeah. But and so that's yeah, so that's the purpose of the book. And I wanted something for my grandkids, when they get old enough to sit down and read about Grandpa Tim, and oh,
Yeah,
Grandpa experienced this. And so it's yeah, it was cathartic. I mean, it was very healing for me to
yeah.
write, and learned a lot about myself in the process. And but yeah, I'm ready for another one. Bring it on.
I love it. Yes,
Yeah.
I know. I feel like I my first book that I wrote, so I published it 2017, and yeah, it was like a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of, well, okay, I wrote it, it's done. Not really like considering myself an author or whatever. And then but then you get that bug of, okay, I'm ready to do the next one. All right, let's do this. And then yeah, you just keep going and it's fantastic and I love it.
Yeah.
So where do we get the book? And tell us the name of it again.
It is called Find Your Beat, Walk in the Rhythm of Life by Tim Eggebraaten. And so you can go on my website, which is offdutychief.com. It's available there. It's available on Amazon or Kindle or anywhere. Barnes and Noble, you can go onto their website and get it. And anywhere you buy books, it'll be available. It's not in every bookstore yet. We're still working on that, but it's available anywhere online. And yeah, hoping it makes a difference and or continues to make a difference
Gonna
in other.
say, I think it already is.
There it is. Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. And where do people follow you?
I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Facebook. I do a little bit on Instagram. So if they just look for my name, Tim Eggebraaten, I pop up. There's 2 Tim Eggebratens that I know of, and we're
Oh,
about the same age, and we're related somehow down the road.
what?
And
That's so
I know,
weird. Like,
yeah,
I would never think that because Eggerbrotten seems like a very unique name.
it's made up. They made it up when they came over from Norway. So it was like,
Oh.
so anybody named Eggebraaten, we're related somehow through Ole. It
Ah,
goes
that's funny.
all the way back to Ole. And
Wow.
but yeah, so I'm on those three main social media. The LinkedIn is probably my go-to thing professionally. Facebook, and then I have a YouTube channel also.
Oh, nice.
My music is found also on iTunes, and I have a few original songs and a lot of cover songs. And,
Oh, nice. Is it on Spotify too? Because I don't have iTunes.
Spotify, you better believe it. Yep.
Okay, good. Because yeah, I'm not an iTunes girl.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and there's so many. Back when I was a kid, I don't have them on I don't have them on 8-track anymore, so it's there's no 8-track players, but
Oh my goodness, that's even before my time.
oh yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah, thank
coming on
you.
the show and sharing with us. I feel like you have so much more to talk about, to say, which I'm sure is probably also shared in your book, and it's probably got lots more that you can share into your second book.
Yeah. Heck
Yeah.
yeah, we'll do it.
Do it, do it, do
Woo,
it.
woo, woo.
I feel like you don't need any peer pressure for it. I think you're gonna do it anyways.
Yeah, it's gonna happen, and it'll be fun.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, listeners, for listening in, and thank you for keeping this message going, Randy. I just appreciate everything that you're doing, and
Oh, thank you.
yeah, no, it's much appreciated.
Thank you. As always, thank you so much for the amazing guests that we have on the show. Be sure to check out their links down in the description below. If you want to support the channel, go ahead and check out our merch store. We've got some very cool things on there. That's my favorite. Sorry, I'm busy ending the stigma. But there's some other very cool designs. 10% of the proceeds always goes back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at RB Media, because we have some great new shows coming up and you never want to miss any of those episodes. And remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly. Bye.